Hello, my name is Tammy Gaskell and I'm the director of the Roloff Jansen Community Library. And today I'm talking with directors of various libraries in the Mid-Hudson systems that participated in a lab project on increasing circulation back in 2015. This was a project focused on increasing the circulation of adult fiction. And they had a goal of raising that by 5%. We'll talk a little bit during our conversation about what sorts of strategies and tactics they used, and also sort of what worked, what didn't, what tips they have for all of you. So I'm going to start by just asking them each to introduce themselves, and then we will start our conversation. So Sue, you want to start?
Sure. So my name is Sue Ray. I am the director at the Catskill Library. This is my 11th year. That's me.
Okay, Julie.
I'm Julie Kelsall-Dempsey. I'm the director at the Highland Public Library, and I've been here, I think it's 27 years now.
How about Jen?
I'm Jen McCreary. I'm the director at the Desmond Fish Public Library, and I've been here for 7 years as the director.
And Stephanie?
I am Stephanie Harrison. I'm director of the Patterson Library, and during the increasing circulation incubator project, I was the director of the Millbrook Library for years.
Okay, thanks all. So as we get started, I think the first thing I wanted to ask you is just why this was the first of the lab projects. I think they called it an incubator project at the time that Mid-Hudson did. And I'm just curious why you decided to participate. What motivated you? Was there anything in particular at your library that you were wanting to address, or just what was it that drew you to this project?
Well, in Highland, we were going to have a bond vote coming up for a new building. So I was looking for any ways to let the public know how important we are by making sure our circulation was something we could be proud of and show people that, yes, people are using the library, because there's a lot of, oh, nobody needs the library anymore is going on talk. So I thought that was participating in this would be a good way of finding other ways to get that circulation to increase, so that I would have those statistics to show the public that, yes, we are still valuable and people do still use us.
At Desmond Fish Public Library, we had a historic trend of circulation going down for about 5 years prior to this project. So we were definitely looking at what we could do to get those numbers heading back up in the right direction.
I think that was probably a system-wide decline, as I understand from looking at the materials you generated. Sue or Stephanie, did you have any particular reasons you were interested in participating?
So what motivated us, I think, was Mid-Hudson had asked, and whenever Mid-Hudson calls, we answer. And also we had a very new management staff. So there was kind of a new regime in place, and everything that Julie and Jen said, just for the public, we wanted to increase our movement of materials and collection development. People doing collection development, we increased from 1 to multiple people.
And at Millbrooks, I had started in 2014, and I inherited a very large building with a lot of books that hadn't been weeded in a really long time. And so we have the space for them. We weren't one of the libraries where we were like overflowing with books. We had plenty of space. We just had really old books and irrelevant books. And so it was a project to sort of go through, weed, cull the collection and start focusing on books people wanted to read. So by participating in the project, it sort of put something that I wanted to do anyway, but it makes you accountable when you're a project like this. You have to report done. And so I was excited to it. My board was on board. With that. Like for us, it was a good project to pursue.
Okay, yeah, thank you. For some of you, we're having a little bit of breaking up, but I think we get the gist. And looking at what you did, and people can find your action plans on the website, it looked like there were 3 strategies that you employed during this project. One was to try to do better book displays. Another was weeding, as some of you have mentioned, weeding. And the other one was trying to fill patron demand, like fill those holes quickly, not let people wait too long to get their books. So I'm curious, did you find any particular challenges in implementing any of these strategies? Was there any pushback from staff or board on weeding or anything else?
There was pushback here about weeding. We traditionally have not weeded before this project too much. So it was nice to have Mid-Hudson's advice to really tackle that and have that behind us as we brought it to the staff and to the board. And it certainly helped motivate folks to try it at least. And it's become a regular thing in our library since this project. The other thing I just wanted to mention is to fill the high demand holds for patrons, we actually ended up getting a McNaughton subscription for New York Times bestselling titles, which we've had since 2015 when this project started. And we actually just canceled this year because the cost was really prohibitive. And we felt like the staff are now more on top of ordering things off the high demand list, so we don't have to rely on McNaughton quite as much. So I don't necessarily think I would advise folks to pursue that.
Can you tell us a little bit about what McNaughton plan is for those who might not be familiar?
Sure. It's a subscription plan. So they automatically send you, depending on your subscription, the top 10 nonfiction and fiction titles off the New York Times bestselling list. That was the subscription that we had. And it's a subscription model. It costs about, I think it was a little under $4,000 a year. So it's expensive. And when you're done with the titles, you can send them back. But the price of the per title ends up being about the price of if you purchase the book. So I think that for a larger library, it might make sense if you're just trying to move books off the shelf quickly that are, again, those high demand titles. But for our library, it just ended up not being economically feasible for the long term.
We have McNaughton as well. Ours is a little different than Jen's. They don't automatically send me books. I go in and I pick the ones that I feel I need. So it doesn't cost us. I think I pay $9.90 for the year, and I only get so many titles because I don't feel I need all of them duplicated necessarily. So I just, things like Danielle Steele and those type that you eventually can leave my collection.
Right, it's a short shelf life. Yeah.
So that's how we use our McNaughton. It's a little different than Jen's was. So.
Mm-hmm. Did you have that before this project, or did you add that?
Yes, we've had it for a long time. We still continue to use it. For a while, we weren't using it as much. I found this year and moving forward next year, because we did not go for an increase last year because of COVID, that I ended up relying on it more than I have in previous years, just to get the high demand books, even if it's only one copy right now, because we did have we didn't have the increase. So utilizing it a little differently than we have in the past.
So sticking with the high demand holds, did anybody else have any strategies that they employed to try to meet those other than McNaughton?
I think that the group had also agreed to lower the threshold, right? Instead of, normally it was 7, I think, and I think we were doing 3 or 4. When it got to 3 or 4, we would purchase another title, which I have not been able to continue, again, because of budgetary constraints. But it worked well. But we did stop doing that. Weeding, we continue, which we didn't get a pushback from staff or the board. It was the community. So we found we could not put books out. Well, actually we did. We put them out on the wall in the old building and people would just come and take boxes of them. So that worked out pretty well, because if I had a dumpster, people would go into the dumpster. So it was just easier to just stack them up out there and let people come and take what they wanted. But yeah.
For me, so hopefully, sorry. So for me, I did McNaughton. I lowered my hold threshold, and I kind of only, and I still do this today here at Patterson. I only buy things. Well, I say I only buy things that people want, but that definitely guides what I buy. I look at what people have holds on, either that here or what is just a high demand hold queue throughout the system. I'm not buying stuff to buy it.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you find out how people have holds on things? You just use the high demand holds function in Sierra?
So what I do, I do the high holds, and then I look at different library journal lists or Works or something, or even Amazon, and I look at the titles and I see if any of my patrons have a hold on it before I buy it. So we might not necessarily have it the day it comes out, but at least I'll get one check.
So how about, high demand, anybody else have any pushback or thoughts on weeding, which seemed like probably one of the bigger projects of the year? I mean, it's one thing to fill holds, it's another thing to weed your whole collection.
Well, at Millbrook, because we had so many books, I felt nervous because I was like weeding like a ton of books. So I was nervous for myself, new director, to be that director who's like throwing out the entire collection. So, but no one ever said it for me. Staff.
And was there a lot of training involved for staff for weeding?
I was the one who weeded. Millbrook's a small library, so I really did all of that myself. So it let me get familiar with the collection as well to see what's there. So it was a good overall experience to understand what my collection held and what it didn't.
So how about displays? Can you tell me a little bit about what you did as far as trying to improve your book displays to move books?
We just purchased book easels, and that was a huge difference. Kind of like a bookstore model with covers facing out. That made a big difference because you can see instantly what's moving.
In the old building, we didn't have a lot of room to do displays. We did try to do them when we could on tops of the shelves or whatever. In the new building, we have shelves purposely there for displays, and they do. I mean, we'll put out things. My head of circle put out something that doesn't have a lot of circulation, so she'll stick it out there and it will immediately get checked out. So the book displays definitely are very helpful in increasing our circulation.
So of the three, of the weeding, circulation, filling holds, I mean, did you find that did they all help in increasing circulation, or was one more important than another, or did weeding actually help increase circulation?
I think so. People don't want to take out old books that have been sitting around. So I think, I'm not the best one to do weeding because I tend to get emotionally attached to certain authors and certain books. And so I have my head to circ do it because she's ruthless. but people, people look at a book, and if it doesn't look nice, or if it's dirty, or if it's, they're not going to take it out. So and if it's outdated, I think it did help our circulation increase when we took out the old books, and it was more new books, and books that were not outdated. So I think it definitely helped. One of the other things we used, which wasn't in here, was we got rid of Dewey in our nonfiction, so two subject headings, and I think that also helped increase in our nonfiction. I mean, we didn't see the results right away. Even by the end of the project, we had not seen an increase that we were hoping for, but over time it has definitely increased. So we just stuck with it.
Anybody else have thoughts on which strategies, if you had to pick one, which would you think is the most effective?
I'd vote. I think the displays out of sight, out of mind, visible people.
So I'm losing you, but I think you said displays. You would pick displays.
Display.
I think a combination of weeding and displays. Weeding, the nice thing about weeding too is that it makes room on your shelf to put books face out. So it has that double-edged sword. And you have a newer looking collection. People want to explore it and check it out. So I think that's made a big difference.
So were you successful in increasing circulation over the period of this project? I know it's only a year, so it's maybe hard to really judge success in that amount of time. But did you see improvements? And it's 5 years ago now, so, or maybe even 6 years ago now. So have you continued doing these same things, and have you continued to see improvements?
We definitely did, and we continue to.
Yeah, we were able to increase our circulation over the course of the project, and I would say that it's at least stayed level over the last few years. So I think it's been a positive thing for our library. I always remember, Julie, I think your final takeaway from the project, though, is something that I think about all the time. So I don't want to quote you. I think you have to say.
No, go ahead, because I don't I don't remember what it was, but it's too long ago.
The thing that I remember you said at the end was just that your patrons that read a lot are not going to check out more books than they already are. Like, they're only going to read so many books. So your takeaway was to get more patrons in the building, and I do think that that's made a big difference. That's certainly been a focus of ours over the last few years, is programs and just telling people about the library that we're here, and getting more folks in to use the library.
Yes.
So it's as much or more about outreach than it is about reading or displays or any of these other things. So it sounds like for all of you, this project has led to ongoing change in the way you do things. So it sounds like you're continuing to weed regularly. So do you have any particular advice or tips that you would give to your colleagues if they wanted to try to do some of these same, a similar project in their library? Where would you start? What hurdles would you warn them of? Any tips for making it easier for your colleagues?
I would say definitely look to Mid-Hudson. They've already done a lot of the work, and other libraries have been involved in the work. There's a ton of information that they provide, like, in one place. And also be ready for, change, and also what comes with that. Change can be hard for some. So try to weed out miscommunication and misinformation, and just communicate with everyone and with the public, of course.
I think in terms of staff buy-in, I would advise that you focus on the wins. It's really nice to get those statistics back and show folks the progress that you're making. It does help a lot with getting everybody on board for things like weeding and get them excited about the progress that you're making.
I think it's also important to make sure that you are listening to your community and reaching out and making sure, that you're bringing in new patrons, like that have programs or whatever, that they come in and then they see everything else you have. So I think it's important to also, with the weeding and everything else, to always have that outreach going that brings in new people who, may not come normally, but if you do some certain program, then they come in and see what else you have to offer, which also helps.
Yeah. From my work on this project, of looking at the 3 lab projects, that seems to be the takeaway from all of them. It's in the end, it's about outreach, knowing your community and outreaching it to them. And all of these numbers and statistics are one measure of success, but they're just one measure of success, and that all of these things are really interrelated. So do you have any other key takeaways? If not, we can wrap this up and we will share this with the rest of the Mid-Hudson directors. Any final words?
I think we covered everything, but it's always, as Sue said, important that you have your staff buy into any big project you take on. So to do that, to listen to them, share with them, and not just talk at them, but let them have input as well. I think it goes a long way into getting them to agree to whatever crazy thing, like when we did away with Dewey.
I
It was a huge project, but the staff and I sat down and we discussed how the best way, and I think that made it a little easier for the undertaking. So.
Okay, well, thank you all again for I know it's been a few years, so not fresh in your mind, but thank you very much for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.